This is a very important message to all Tesla stock investors. I rarely say this, so you know this one is serious. Elon Musk's brother this week sold Tesla stock, and that created a huge debate, not just among Tesla bears, but also Tesla bulls. How come directors and executives of Tesla are not buying Tesla stock? Let's answer this question in this video. There is a great explanation for that, but it is not obvious just looking at the surface facts, so we will need to dig deeper here. If I just go to nasdaq.com and then sort all of the insider trading by buying Tesla stock only, here's what we see. We see a lot of activity. However, these are all for exercising stock options, meaning these were already granted, where you can buy Tesla stock at a cheaper predetermined price because you performed, let's say, well at the company. So you are not really buying new stock. It was already awarded to you. This is just claiming compensation, basically. Looking at NASDAQ data here, you don't see anyone buying except exercising their options, and this data goes as far as 2021. But if we look at them selling, there's a lot of selling going on. It happens pretty much every single month. So should we be concerned? Tesla's executives are selling and Tesla board members are selling too. First of all, how much do Tesla executives get paid? Zachary and Andrew, they only get paid $300,000 per year. These are top executives. Of course, they want more than $300,000 per year to support their families. But this is where it gets a little bit confusing if you don't know all of the details, so you will definitely want to watch this. The CFO of Tesla only holds 200,000 shares if you look right here, but there's a lot more to this. These 200,000 shares, that's only $37 million for someone like this. That is not a huge amount. I mean, you are one of the top 5 most important executives inside of Tesla, and you only got $37 million. That doesn't seem like much to me. And our CFO is very consistent with his Tesla stock sales. I mean, it's basically every single month. These are not large amounts. 4,000 shares at current prices, that is roughly $740,000 depending on what the stock is doing at that moment. Andrew Baglino, who is also one of the most important Tesla executives, he sells very regularly. I marked him in red here. The only difference is he owns a lot less stock than the CFO. He only owns 65,000 shares. That is only about $12 million in Tesla stock that he owns. Very little for such a high-level executive. And as you can see, Tesla's proxy statement says that these 4 executive officers are basically the most important ones. Zach is here, Andrew is here, and now Tom has been added here as well. But are they really not compensated well? And this is where it gets so much more interesting. The problem with looking at NASDAQ data is you do not see how many stock options these guys have. This is how much these stock options were worth that were awarded to Andrew Baglino in 2020, $46 million. And same with Zachary, $46 million. But that's just the last 3 years. This right here includes all stock options that are already exercisable or will become exercisable in the next 60 days. And this right here reveals exactly how much Tesla stock all of the Tesla executives as well as the board members actually own, that they could sell basically right now, but they are not selling for some reason. Maybe, and this is just a maybe they think Tesla stock will actually still keep going up a lot. You will be fascinated if you are not aware of this. Zachary, our CFO, who does a great job, he owns about 2.7 million Tesla shares if you include all of the options. That is more than 10 times the amount you would think he owns if you just look at how many shares he holds based on the NASDAQ data, because this does not include options. In other words, our CFO, Zach, actually owns over $500 million worth of Tesla stock. And I say over, even though this shows it's less than that. I say over because this does not include stock options that cannot be exercised in the next 60 days. And guess what? There is more. Page 59 reveals exactly how many options cannot be exercised yet. When I include all of the stock options that Zach owns, as well as the little Tesla stock that he has right now already, the total number of shares, you could say, basically, comes down to almost 3 million. And at $185 per share, these shares are worth $545 million. So if Tesla stock doubles, our CFO will actually be a billionaire. He's doing a great job and he deserves it. When I did for Andrew Baglino, a very similar story appears as well. I added up all of these stock options as well as the little Tesla stock that he owns outright, and it comes to about 1.5 million shares, and that is worth $300 million almost. Here's the list of trades from Andrew, and it's about $2 million per month. Looking at some of the more recent months, if he wants to sell that much, I have absolutely no problem because he owns about $300 million worth of Tesla stock at current prices. At this rate, it's not even 10% of his total holdings of Tesla stock per year. A very similar story applies to almost every single Tesla director and board member. For example, Robin, who is the chair of the board, she owns 1.6 million shares, including options. 1 million shares, that's roughly $200 million. So in total, she owns about $300 million worth of Tesla stock. And keep in mind, Tesla stock dropped 50% from all-time highs. So these numbers were actually much higher before. You look at everyone else, Ira, also $300 million worth of Tesla stock. Joe is a newer member to the board. Hero also owns quite a bit. James, a lot. And then Kimball Musk. This is equal to roughly $400 million worth of Tesla stock. And people make a big deal that he just sold $20 million worth of Tesla stock. If you think that Kimball can time Tesla stock, I have a big question to you. How come did he not sell more than $20 million? $20 million is nowhere near even close to 10% of his total Tesla stock holdings. What I'm showing you here could be exercised basically today. You don't have to wait for 3 years for these stock options to become exercisable. You can sell that right now. And yet, no one is selling a huge amount. The question is not why did they sell such tiny little bits of Tesla stock. The question is, why are we not selling more? I mean, for most of them, a lot of their wealth is concentrated in Tesla stock. In many of these cases, it would be a lot more than just, let's say, 10% of their total assets. That's generally the accepted rule that, okay, maybe put 10% of your total assets in this one stock if you do not mind taking on more risk. And pension fund managers, they do not want to put more than 5% into one single stock. And yet, they are all putting a lot more than 10% of their total assets in just Tesla stock alone. Some of them are fairly rich, but I mean, the CFO owns over $500 million worth of Tesla stock. He is not on the billionaire list, so I don't think that that's only 10% of his total assets. This implies that at least 50% of his total net worth is in Tesla stock, and yet he is barely selling anything. I mean, he is selling some, but not that much compared to his total holdings. And look, many of these board members are older. Robin is 59, Ira is 54, Hero is 57, and check this out, Kathleen is 65 years old. That's retirement age. And how much of Tesla stock does she own at 65 years old when you are supposed to retire and diversify everything? $142.5 million. And she's definitely not a billionaire. She's not on the Forbes list. So this is going to be a lot more than just 15% of her total assets. Why do you think someone at 65 years old would be comfortable holding so much of Tesla stock? You know, because they do see everything from the inside. They have information that we don't have, and yet you're 65 and you are holding $142.5 million worth of Tesla stock. You have to be either one, crazy, or number two, you know something that other people do not. None of these board members are selling large amounts of Tesla stock. It's only little tiny bits of Tesla stock here and there, not large amounts. Like even Elon, relatively speaking to his ownership, it was not a huge amount, although it was pretty sizable. Elon still owns $132 billion worth of Tesla stock, so he sold a huge chunk, over $40 billion worth of Tesla stock. And yeah, if everyone else was selling that much, I would have some serious questions. Elon had a good reason to sell Tesla stock, but everyone else, I don't think they would have such a good reason as buying Twitter and trying to prevent our free speech from disappearing. I think that was a pretty good investment. He lost $20 billion doing that, but I appreciate Elon doing that, even though that is against my financial interest. I think it was the right move on Elon's part. So I am okay with that, but everyone else is not selling more than 10% per year. In fact, most of them are selling very little amounts. In other words, if Tesla stock crashed by, let's say, 70%, 80%, 90%, then a lot of their wealth would just disappear. Do you think the board and the main directors are strongly incentivized to keep Tesla stock high long term? I think so. I think they definitely are. And the question is not why are they not buying more? The question is how come they are so concentrated and they are not selling more Tesla stock? That is the real question. Please answer that. On the other hand, here's Bill Gates, and he owns about $10 billion worth of Microsoft stock, which would be less than 10% of his net worth. How come board members that are nowhere near as rich as Bill Gates own a lot more than 10% of Tesla stock when we look at their net worths? Something to really think about, because maybe this is the Tesla stock buying opportunity explained by Elon Musk, which they all are really in love with. My name is Matt Postius. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, except in their case, it would not be a buying opportunity. It would simply be not a good selling opportunity because they think the stock will still go up a lot. One more quick thing. This is why I said that these options are currently exercisable. This is what this paper says, or will be exercisable within 60 days of March 31st. And then you can check all of the footnotes as well if you would like to see more data. So if you do see a whole lot of selling going on suddenly, then this might be different, but currently there is not that much selling.